You know, I thought I had every game on my roster locked down, that I didn't have room for anything else. I'm playing plenty of roguelikes. I got Hades 2 and the original Hades game. I've got Umi game, which I just played. I've got Elden Ring that I'm diving into and trying to like really get into because I want to play Night Rain. Like, I have plenty of things on my plate in the gaming world, on top of the fact that like I'm busy. I'm a busy person. We got things going on, right, in our lives. And then I saw Abyssus. I think it was a promoted post on Reddit that I found. And I clicked it. I saw some of the footage, thought it was interesting. And I was like, you know what? I will download it. I will play one run, a singular run, and I'll see if I like it. Do I enjoy the gameplay loop? Whatever. Long story short, I played for about 7 hours straight. And yeah, I think I have room for one more game in my roster. Just one more game in my roster. So what even is Abyssus? It's a 1 to 4 player first person shooter roguelike. Something that I actually don't think I've played that many first person shooter roguelikes. I mean, it's got a very typical gameplay loop, like progression system with like blessings. I think you see this in a lot of different roguelikes. That's kind of how they portray it. There's a bunch of different, you know, categories in these blessings. There's like ocean, spirit, barrier, lightning, wind. I mean, fire maybe. I don't know. I'm spitballing now, just saying random elements to see what sticks. But I think this like blessing based progression they've got going on fits really well into this weird underwater techie magic setting that they've given themselves. They call it brine punk. You know, I say this a lot about a lot of games, but I think it has a pretty unique visual identity. It's something I think games kind of have to have, especially when if you broke games down to just their core components, a lot of what makes a game enjoyable, addictive, you know, replayable isn't really the mechanics. You can find 10, 20, 30, 40, 100 games out there with similar mechanics to this game. It's what the game makes you feel, how it looks, what you're actually doing in the game, the payoff, what these bosses are like. That's what's important. And this game delivers. And of course, this is just the demo. I've only fought 2 mini bosses and a main depth boss. So there's a lot to come with this game. Speaking of, it's coming pretty soon on August 12th. And if you're watching this now or after, it's available right now for purchase. Every YouTube video I clicked on when going to make a video about this opened with like, what would happen if BioShock and insert run and gun first person shooter had a baby? And while I think that's like easy bait to get people to click because of BioShock, I honestly think like the comparison stops with steampunk, and there's so much media out there that's like steampunk, brine punk, whatever vibe, that's not even really fair, I don't think. What I think this game is so much closer to is Ultra Kill. It feels so close to Ultra Kill. I have about 30 hours in Ultra Kill, and yeah, it felt like it, not only visually with its like slightly less than fully HD rendered atmosphere, and kind of the way you play. The jumping around felt very like UK-ish, and I know Ultra Kill is a little more linear than you know, a roguelike. It doesn't really have such a tight gameplay loop, but I think it's a way stronger comparison of like similar game than BioShock or Doom or something like that. So if you like Ultra Kill and you're into roguelikes, this might be the game for you to pick up. Just saying. The gameplay learning curve is not that bad if you've played any FPS, specifically if you've played Ultra Kill. And I think the biggest thing you have to do is learn about the blessing systems and how to like make your secondary, primary, and ability work together. But you would have to do that with any of these sorts of games, figure out how the actual gameplay mechanics work. So that's something that is not even you can't even say it's a negative. I don't think it's a positive per se, but I don't think it's a bad thing at all. The first weapon you get to start with is like a machine gun with like a regular fire and then a burst fire, which if I'm remembering correctly kind of reminds me of an Ultra Kill weapon. But then there's also like a revolver, a shotgun, and a Tesla gun. Now I think the Tesla gun is probably objectively the best gun, or you can make some of the most impressive, highest damage output, you know, loadouts with the Tesla gun. Personally, I think my favorite's the revolver, because it's just there's so many things that you can do in your different blessings, different runs, different charms that you can get that really can take it up to the next level. So that's my personal favorite. But these systems kind of start layering on top of each other, the blessings and your abilities and your fires, to really create an experience that isn't so remarkably uniquely different than say another FPS out there. I don't think so. But when you add into the fact that the setting is just so well done, even if it's borrowing from what I would call a really popular vibe, it's truly impressive, and I think that's actually what made me stay when I was playing the game. I play a lot of video games, a lot of roguelikes, a lot of, a bunch of different titles, and something I think maybe specifically indies, but a lot of games kind of get caught up in is the gameplay mechanic. And don't get me wrong, it's vital, right? It is actually what's going to make players enjoy the game. But more than almost anything, the game has to be intriguing and enticing. Think of Elden Ring, right? You pick up Elden Ring or a Souls game for the very first time, you want to put that thing down almost immediately. But why do you stay? You stay because the world is so immersive. You stay because it's interesting. There are cool weapons, cool bosses, cool items. It's fun to run around. The first time I played Elden Ring when it launched, all I did was run around for like all of the 30 hours I put into the game was just me running around. I think I only beat Margaret the Fellow, and that's it. It's the only like mainline remembrance whatever boss that I beat. But I played so much of the game because it was so well made in every other aspect. Souls kind of has this down where like the core of a Souls game is pretty much all the same. I think roguelikes are kind of in the same boat. The core of a roguelike, the meta progression, is pretty nailed down. So what you have to do is deliver on the story, the setting, the vibe, what's actually going to keep people interested. This one has something that I think will pleasantly surprise people who play the game. When you go back to mechanics, everything I'm going to say here is kind of on the assumption that upon full game come August 12th, we will have even more of what I'm talking about. But even in just my like 10 hours of playing this game, I created so many different kind of loadouts that I was genuinely impressed with how some of them performed, how cool they were. And I didn't even unlock everything in the demo, by the way. There are other things that you can unlock in the demo that I did not unlock. And I was already so impressed, and I'm already gonna play a lot more of this game in just the demo leading up to the full game. Even though my progression is going to be wiped, I just want to play it that bad. Knowing that there's that kind of depth just in the first 2 or so depths, they're called depths when you play, the levels are called depths, but knowing there's that kind of depth, pun intended, in this game, it makes me feel okay spending money on it, right? It makes me feel okay spending money knowing I'm going to get something out of the replayability. I've said before that I'm totally okay with spending upward to 200 hours on games that aren't even finished yet in this genre, like Hades 2. So imagine a game that, is going to launch ready and then probably just have more content coming out. I feel like this is something that's right up my alley and a bunch of other people's alleys. When you layer in that there are even more weapons coming in the full game, each weapon has like primary and secondary fire, an ability that you can use, the blessings that you can pick up, the artifacts that you can grab, the meta progression in the game with the souls. Like, there is so much in this game that you don't just get like good, you don't just play it, like you can get meticulous about it. You can master the mechanics of this game, and I think that's something that keeps players, is when they can reach like a pro status. Like, there's always a chance to get better, optimize further, especially with games like this. So if you're into this vibe and you want to make sure you're going to get your money's worth, I can almost assure you will. And what's even better is if you're not looking to master a game and just have fun, I'm not a pro gamer in any way, shape, or form, and I totally enjoyed it and loved it and will keep playing it. So for the casual people out there too, I think you'll have a great time. Again, this is not a perfectly polished AAA game. There's this vibe that this game is like 5 or 6 years too late, 10 years too late, and I kind of love it. Like, I think this is exactly what I would need out of this game. If this game was overly visually produced or kind of tried to escape this like steampunky vibe with excellent 4K graphics, it would lose me a little bit. I think I would be less immersed in a better, higher quality, I say with air quotes because I think this game is high quality, but in a higher quality visual environment, I think it would lose me a little bit. And so that's a really great show of restraint from the designers and developers to say, you know what, no, this is the vibe that this game needs. Maybe it needs to be lower poly than like Hades or the newest high fidelity Call of Duty. Like, it doesn't need to be this super polished visual, because it plays into the vibe of the game, and I think that's great. I think that's why it stuck out to me so much, is that I realized this wasn't like a shortcoming of the developers, it was an intentional choice, and it shows, and it really works. I'd also like to add that there is some lore going on here, and I'm excited to learn a lot more about what's going on in this world. There are some voice lines that are like giving the implication that these characters are kind of confused as to why they keep respawning and living, and I kind of like that. I've said this before and I'll say it again. In roguelikes, I like a story/narrative explanation for why you can do your runs over and over again. I like a good one. You know what? I think it's fun. It's impressive to me that you can create a story that has this element in its narrative. I don't think could be hard. I don't think it's very hard, but I do think it's just a nice little touch from the narrative like designers, whoever's creating the story for this game, to have that thing in here. So I'm glad they're teasing it a little bit in the demo. There are also these journal entries that you can pick up as you're running, kind of in little hidden areas, and all of them are kind of interesting to me. Some of them are funny, some of them are just, you know, little bits of lore, little explanations. There's even an Expedition 33 reference, which is cool. I'm assuming the developers just kind of like the game, and I think that's fun. I think playing a little bit into the actual like just world of video games is great, and I think it's little things like that that are going to kind of help you stay relevant, or help you help creators make content that's going to help push your game out a little further, right? So I think that's just smart, because I know when this game launches, some big creator is going to play this game and they're going to have a short come out of this Expedition 33 note, and it's going to get 300,000 views on YouTube Shorts, and you know they're going to get a spike of 10,000 downloads, like, right? Like that, something like that's going to happen with some element of the game if they have even more of these across, you know, however many depths are in the full game. So it's just smart. I think it's cool. I think it's smart. It makes me want to read the notes to see what's in there, and it's just good lore building that's not so far in your face that if you just want to play the gameplay, you just can. But it's also, are you the kind of person that's going to run around and look for little secrets? Great, I've got something for you, and there's payoff in that. On that same note, I think a lot of games try to convince players that their story is good, that their setting is the right one. There's a lot of front loading of like, the gods came down from above and killed like, I don't want all that, right? Let me play the game. Let me decide for myself if I think this atmosphere is good, if the gameplay loop is what I want, if the weapons are fun, does it fit the vibe? And over time, I'll find these things like the journal entries. I'll find little bits of lore that actually get me excited for the story that's going on. When it comes to any game where your gameplay loop takes precedent over the story, even though your setting is probably more important than any individual mechanic, it's important, I think, to choose a direction and just stick with it, right? You're making a steampunk game where you dive underwater, and this is the vibe. And we're making the decisions based on this vibe, and it's our guiding light, right? That's how we're going to decide how the enemies look, how they function, how they act, how the weapons work, how our upgrade system works. And all of those things are core to gameplay, but they're informed by the setting and the design, the narrative storytelling. That's what they're informed by, but they only really truly affect gameplay. I feel like with this game, I didn't have to be convinced the story was good enough to play. I just had to be shown, you know, hey, this is a fun game. And also you might like the vibe, and I liked both. And I think that's what this demo and this game is going to do so well when it actually launches August 12th. If you play the demo or you've watched some footage and you've watched this video and you have some opinions, I want to hear your thoughts, right? I do like making YouTube videos. I love hearing the sound of my own voice while I record, but even more than that, I love hearing your opinion. That's why I do this. I like making discussion. I like leading it. I think it's great to talk about stuff. So please leave a comment down below. And as always, if you've got an indie game or AAA game, any kind of game really that you want me to talk about, or you think, you know, anyone in the comments should also know about, leave it down below. You never know. It could be my very next video.